is when people try to say about Egypt of old, we got to think of the key elements here. First things is when the Israelites entered into the land of Egypt, right? Not only were they not bondmen or bondmen, they weren't in any kind of captivity whatsoever. They were invited into the land and they were treated with royalty and respect. And they were given a choice part of the land. The part of the land they were given is the land called Goshen. Now, the important thing to see here and understand and comprehend is that they weren't strangers in that land. And not only that, when they were dwelling in their land, they were dwelling in a land that the Most High, by promise, had given unto Abraham. Because there were boundaries that were put on the land of promise. It wasn't simply just that little slit between, use my words, between the Mediterranean Sea and the Dead Sea. It was from the Nile River up into the great river of Euphrates. Now, if you look at where the land of Goshen sits, it sits on the eastern part of the Nile. So it's within the confines of the land that was promised unto Abraham. So not only were they not strangers, the land belonged to them by promise. So it could not have been Genesis chapter 15 talking about Egypt of old. Rather, Egypt of old was a forerunner to what the Most High would be doing in these latter days. So that's where I stand on that. And aside from what other brothers have brought out as far as the mathematical, the years, it doesn't add up. If you just study the scriptures, basically, if you study the Masoretic text, it tells you that calculation at 430 years, it didn't just wasn't talking about Egypt. It was talking about the land of Canaan and the land of Egypt. So that's two strikes against Genesis chapter 15 pertaining to the Egypt of old. And I'll land on that.
Hey, I would like to say the reason why I believe that's wrong is because the Lord told the children of Israel, you be very careful how you treat the stranger in your land. You shall not vex him or oppress him. For remember, you were strangers in the land of Egypt. And in another place, when he repeated the same thing, he said, you should have loved the stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, seeing you were strangers in the land of Egypt. So what I want to point out is that Genesis 15, when we talk about Genesis 15, we can't get stuck in verse 12. If we're going to continue to read it on, let's go ahead and do that right quick. And that Jeremiah 23 is interesting because it said the Lord will bring you out of the north country and all countries whither he had scattered thee. The north country to the Israelites in that context was Babylon. It was Mesopotamia. That was what was north of their territory. And that's where the great terror of the north came into their land. And we could prove that through a myriad of texts. And so I just want to say that if we're looking at somehow Jeremiah 23 being connected to Genesis 15, then that country in particular is described as the north country in all the countries. But in particular, the Most High said that nation. So that's how we know Genesis 15 doesn't connect to Jeremiah 23. But what I want to say is that what we have here in Genesis 15 is very, very interesting, because when you read it, because if we say Genesis 15 doesn't apply, there's been an argument for eons about the 400 years. And so what I want to point out here is this. Let me actually bring it up because I'm talking it, but I actually want to look at it. Here we go. Genesis 15 and 13. So it doesn't just mention 400 years. Verse 13, and he said to Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they, talking about, his children, his seed, shall come out with great substance, and you shall go to your fathers in peace. You will be buried in a good old age. But in the fourth generation, they, his seed, shall come here again, for the sins or the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. So as we talk about the 400 years and we go back and forth about that, and it's clear we won't all agree on that, I believe it's time to also bring into the narrative what it means that they will come back in the fourth generation, and what is the iniquity of the Amorites that is not full. So when he told Abraham, you're going to die, but in the fourth generation they shall come hither. I'm arguing Genesis 15 is saying that after Abraham's death, they're coming back in the fourth generation after his death. And at that time, the iniquity of the Amorites, whatever problem God got with the Amorites, will be complete at that time. So the children are going to be able to take the land because at that time, God is done with the Amorites. So however it goes, for those of you like myself who might believe it has something to do with Egypt, I think you would be on the hook to explain this part of Genesis 15. And for those who believe it has something to do with America, I believe you're on the hook to explain what you think it means, the fourth generation, because for those who are rocking with the HR 1242 somehow marking the end of a 400-year period, okay, then that means this period is coming. So tell us what you think the fourth generation since the end of 2019 means, and what is the iniquity of the Amorites that has to finish?
I would go back to the question mathematically. How do you prove that the children of Israel was in the land of Egypt?
Brother, that's not my question. I'm done with the 400. This part you can't avoid. Santonio, I'm not here to prove
land on Egypt though.
Santonio, just look what you did. I just put something. Santonio, we done with your argument. I put something on the table for the room. Santonio, no. Santonio, I'm saying for those of us who believe it's Egypt, we have to go into the scripture and prove what we think that's saying. That's clear. That's fair. But I said for those who believe it's America, the 400 years is finished. It is now, according to y'all calculations, 403 years and 4 months.
I understand that.
So what is the fourth? Brother, Santonio, please let me finish. Santonio, I did not come off mic when you were talking.
You cut me off.
I did not. Santonio, I did not come off mic when you were talking. Please mute up until I'm finished. Santonio, please finish until I mute up.
No. I was talking.
Santonio, please finish until I mute up. I was not done talking. You came off mic right away. Santonio, I was not done talking. Please mute up.
Wait, I was talking.
Santonio, please finish. Santonio, could you?
Wait, I was talking first.
No, you weren't.
Hold on. I was talking first.
You were not.
You had landed your plane.
I did not land my plane.
Everybody silent. Everybody silent. Everybody mute up. Now we're gonna be civil in this conversation. We ain't finna yell. We ain't finna yell or we ain't finna scream. I'm not here for this, y'all. Okay, we come to the understanding that if we don't agree, all agree on this thing, which we're fine with. But we're not gonna start yelling and arguing and getting into this little space that we're about to go into. No, this is not gonna happen. We're gonna go back to where we were, where everybody was even toned and having a conversation. I'm the only person that can be heated because this is my room. But
hell no.
But
you better keep this mess up, then.
For the sake of everyone, I'm not gonna go there. I'm gonna be nice today. Maybe tomorrow, because I can tell this is going to go carry. I'm going to do another part to this on tomorrow, because we're going to talk about this 400-year prophecy. Now, Zadok, go back to your original point. Santonio, you come after him. I have a follow-up to your point, Zadok, because you keep trying to throw pop shots at me about this American.
I am not throwing pop shots. I say names. I say names. I don't send subliminals. I'm not a subliminal person. It's not in my nature. I say names.
I'm joking with you.
Oh, okay.
You know what? I'm not finna. You ain't finna get heated with me.
Zay sound like he kind of wound up, man. I was wanting to hear what he had to say though. He was making a point. Tonio, let him finish. Then you come and you take off after him.
Ain't nobody scared. Ain't nobody scared of Zay.
I was just responding to the point he had already made.
I wasn't finished.
So can y'all do me a good one? Make your point, but I want everybody with Zadok. 1 second, Santonio. Hold on 1 second. Let Zadok get his point. Once he's
done, I'm always the big person, Sister E. I'm always the big person. So go ahead, Zadok. It's cool with me.
I'm so sick of everybody.
You're a big-headed, tank-headed person is what you are.
You're gonna shut up, though.
Antonio always yelled to keep the peace. That's a fact. So go ahead.
Okay, so Zadok, you go ahead. Santonio, everybody's gonna mute up when you talk. I don't want nobody to say another word after Zadok and Santonio go. While Zadok going, everybody mute up. Mute up now. Zadok, go.
So I won't have anything else to say after this because I know that this will be avoided by many. So the 400 years won't be agreed to. I don't care what anyone says. What you walked in this room with tonight, you're leaving with when it comes to the 400 years. If you think it was Egypt or if you claim it's America now. So the conversation that I've been a part of for the past quarter century, it doesn't change tonight because it just doesn't, right? So if that's the case, then what I'm putting on the table is whatever part of the vision you hold, if you believe that Egypt, that the children of Israel in Egypt coming out of Egypt with Moses represents the 400 years, you are also responsible to explain that after Abraham dies and goes to his grave in a good old age, in the 4th generation, his children will come hither again because the sins of the Amorites are not yet complete. If you believe that got something to do with Egypt, you have to show in the scripture what you think that is talking about. And if you adhere to the 400 years, can you explain what you believe them coming in the 4th generation after the 400 years and the sins of the Amorites not being finished means? Not explain what you think the 400 years is, but what this part is talking about. Because I believe this part, whatever part of you, if you for America or ancient Egypt, this part comes after Abraham's death. So what do you all explain it to mean? That's all I want to know. For those who might look at it like me, how would you explain it? And for those who have the America represents the 400 years, how do you explain after the 400 years coming back in the 4th generation and the sins of the Amorites being complete? That's all I would like to know from those, because the 400 years been argued about for the last, 2 or 3 hours now?
Well, put me in the queue to respond to that, Zadok, or whomever is controlling the room when I get an opportunity. Thank you.
Actually, you can go ahead.
I thought Santonio was next.
No, he's not next.
Well, I just wanted to say this one thing. For me, the reason I was responding to Zadok, because I wanted to take everyone who wanted to lean and say that Genesis 15 is the fulfillment of Egypt. I wanted to take the legs out from you so we all can be on the same page that Genesis 15 is referring to this time period by forcing you all to prove that the children of Israel were in the land of Egypt for 430 years. I keep saying over and over, if you can't prove that the children of Israel mathematically were in the land of Egypt for 430 years, then you can't keep saying that Genesis 15 leading back to Egypt. We all got to lean together to Genesis 15. All this filibustering and lollygagging.
Y'all won't, first of all, you won't let us do nothing. And I talked to you before we started this. Exactly what I wanted before we started this. So all this flower talk you talking is mayonnaise. Save it, bro. Go ahead, Doc. Go ahead, Mr. Bell. You niggas.
Go ahead, William Bell. That sounds good. God ain't gonna let me get it off. Go ahead, William Bell.
All right, thanks. I'm of the opinion that it refers to the time in Egypt. And now, specifically to Zadok's questions on the 4th generation. If you count 4 generations from the time that they went to Egypt, you will see that that's the time of Moses. You can look in Exodus chapter 6, and just look at the genealogy. Starting in verse 16, these are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations. And he gives their names, and when you trace out Kohath's generation, you get to Amram and then to Moses. So there are your 4 generations.
And then secondly, when you go to Joshua 24:15, you get to the land of the Amorites. It says in verse 15, and if it seems evil to you to serve the Lord, choose yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. So they were, excuse me, they were engaged in the conquest and taking that land. And so that was God's judgment on the Amorites. So all that fits within the time of Egypt. And one other point I'd like to make is when you look at the sojourn of Israel in Exodus 12 and verse 40, the text doesn't say that they were in Egypt 430 years. It says the sojourn of the children of Israel who lived in Egypt. I think that's how it reads. Let me read it real quick. Yeah.
Let's get the Bible.
All right. Hold on a second. Now, the sojourn of the children of Israel who lived in Egypt was 430 years. It didn't say they were in Egypt 430 years. It says the sojourn of those who lived in Egypt was 430 years. What that means is you had 215 years in the land of Canaan, and you had 215 of those years in the land of Egypt. And if you look in Hebrews 11 and verse 9, it does say that Abraham sojourned in the land of promise as in a strange or foreign country. So they didn't consider that as their land. Abraham didn't. He knew that it wasn't, because he looked for a city that had foundations whose builder and maker was God. So they were not looking at Canaan as their homeland. So from that perspective, you've got the 4 generations, you've got the Amorites, you've got the text that says 430 years, both in Galatians and there. And if you just read the passages, they've already brought up the text, from Acts 17, when the time of the promise. If you go back and look at the context, you'll see that they're still in Egypt. Canaan and Egypt is the setting for all of those. So there's no, in my opinion, there's no grounds to go beyond that point. And of course, with my point of view, it all ends in 70 AD anyway. So there's no way you're going to get beyond that, because that's when all prophecy was fulfilled. But anyway, thank you very much.
All right. I want to ask you a question before we move forward.
Can I make a statement, Don?
Hold on, give me just a minute. I want to ask Mr. Bell something for clarification. Where are you getting your time calculations from, Mr. Bell?
For what?
From which?
Probably 215 and 215.
If you go, and this is something I can't do here, but if you go and count the years for the patriarchs in the land of Canaan, you will find that it adds up to about 215 years. I've done that, but I don't have it in my head now. I did that some years ago. And then when you
got that part right. Keep going.
And then when you add that to the time that they were in Egypt, you get about the same time.
Okay, so I want to ask you one last question. In Genesis 15, does it tell us when the 400 years begin? Is there a definite time marker to begin counting this 400 years from your study?
It doesn't give you.
Tell us that.
It doesn't give you at least from my memory. I don't see that it gives a definite time. It just says in the 4th generation they shall return here, and wherever they were returning is somewhere where they were from the beginning. They weren't in America from the beginning.
Okay. So in other words, no matter what we come up with, we have to put them in the place they were afflicted, regardless to our timing. I think all conflict is subjective. Would you agree with that? Yeah, but would you agree that the time, how we're mathematically deriving to, and I want to say this, I think we're trying to confirm through mathematics, but would you agree that it's subjective?
I don't think it's all that subjective, because he tells you, and I think you quoted earlier, if I'm not mistaken, or someone did, that says 430 years after the law was given. And I don't know how anybody could take that and place it way beyond Egypt.
Right. And that's kind of the issue. But I want to say this. What Galatians says is that they were there 430 years. Which is why I was asking you, would you agree that if Genesis is not giving us an exact pinpoint location where to start counting or do mathematics, then it becomes subjective, because all the witnesses are saying the exact same thing. The exact same thing.
It most certainly covers 400 years.
It has to cover 430 exact years. Otherwise, we've got an issue.
Let me tell me what you're saying, Don. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're saying that the 430 years mentioned in Galatians 3:17 comes after when, or starts when?
Yeah, I never said when. I've been holding that.
Okay.
I was hoping that the room would build up to a deductive reasoning instead of the inductive reasoning we've been hearing. But I will go ahead and submit this. It has to be 430 years because of Galatians, because of Exodus.
Are you saying 430 years in Egypt? I'm just trying to make sure I'm under. Yeah. Because
it's not exactly 400 years in Egypt, but it is definitely 430 years with the wilderness.
I find it hard to believe, because in verse 16, he says, now to and his seed were the promises made. So that's the statement leading into verse 17. Now to Abraham and his seed were the promises. He does not say in the seeds as of many, but as of one, and to your seed who is Christ. And this I say, that the law, which is 430 years later. Now, what's the point of reference there? The point of reference
there is, and this is part of the room you missed. This is the part of the room Tommy missed too. What Galatians is doing.
Ain't nobody missed nothing. You lost a debate on this topic, man.
I'm gonna let you talk on this, Tommy. So I'm gonna catch Mr. William Bell up on this in YouTube.
And then honestly, y'all gonna have to let Tommy.
I'm gonna let you have the floor.
Yeah, let me just say, I'm just gonna make a statement. I'm gonna get right back to you. I promise, bro. I promise I'll hand it right back to you. I just wanted to say real quick, Brother William, if what you're saying, I'm gonna be real quick, I promise. If what you're saying is true, the 215 split, I know Don remember that. That hurt. Then what Brother Santonio, he has a point. If you can't say that they was in the affliction in Egypt for 430 years, this is what Pastor Tonio brought out. Why are y'all ignoring that fact? Because that's a good point. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, we're not ignoring it. What we're doing is, and this is why I said before, we had 11 points, right? So, Tommy, you listen. So, Mr. Bell, I broke down Genesis. We all broke down Genesis to 11 fine points.
Hey, Don, real quick. Just so Santonio don't have these people deceived, I conceded to that point earlier. That 400 years, I conceded to that. But I still think it's got to be somewhere around that time frame. I don't think it can be America. I'm not even gonna say it's Egypt because of that one point. I won't definitively say it's Egypt. But
thank you for your honesty, brother.
I did concede to that.
Yeah. Right, you definitely did. So, but
then it drives the point.
Get this over with, because you were here, Santonio.
But most of y'all on the panel were here. But then it drives the point that when was Genesis 15 fulfilled? That's where I'm going to land there.
Okay, right. The point is, I mean, listen, it don't matter how many times you want to argue your side of it. It don't matter. Hermeneutically, what you're saying is impossible. But the 11 points of Genesis has to include the Amorites, as you said, Mr. Bell, as the doc says, as JT and the rest of us on here that's understanding what the text is telling us. That is what you call a bulkhead. The fact that it's talking about the seed, never mind the mathematic calculations right now. That's what we're doing. We're trying to confirm what God already confirmed. That's what we're trying to do. That really is subjective. What's objective is the fact that it's on the seed. But in Galatians, it says, let's go back to Galatians for a moment. Notice what the text doesn't.
No, but what's objective?
Somebody go to Genesis. Hold on, Wiggins. All you're doing is making it complicated. You don't have to do that. And this, I say that the covenant, God makes a covenant with Abraham, comma, that was confirmed. What does confirm mean? It means to repeat over and over again. That was confirmed before of God in Christ. That's the seed right there. That's the Zerah. But what comes after it is something in Genesis that we're overlooking that this text is not saying in Galatians. That's the part y'all overlooking.
We're done.
Wait a minute. One second.
You keep dancing around the question. You keep telling me to be quiet. You keep saying I'm making it complicated. But I need you to tell me.
And I'm talking at the same time.
That's the whole point. Why you keep dancing around the question I'm asking you?
You're interrupting as I'm getting to the point of it.
Hey, Antonio, that boy got hammer pants on, done dancing, boy.
Antonio, hold on.
Why you tap dancing though? I mean, no.
Santonio, let Don finish. Because I got something I feel like y'all tap dancing on.
Okay, I want to hear it. Go ahead, Don. Take off.
Okay, Don.
Yeah, let Don finish. We're going to talk about tap dance as soon as he's done.
Okay, if you let me finish. They scared. They are scared.
Okay, come on.
Shut up. All right, brother. I love you, but shut your cake hole up. Shut it.
You shut up.
Hush, gal.
Go ahead, man. Let Sister get it out. Just go ahead, man. You taking a long time. Go ahead, bro. Let's build. Come on. I want to hear what Robbie got to say. Go ahead.
I ain't lying. So anyway, when Galatians talks about the covenant, tells you it was confirmed, then it says the law, and immediately what follows that, it tells you which was 430 years after. This verse is not a kill shot verse for nothing, but what's in there is the law, which was 430 years after. Ambiguous. Question, what is after? Go back to Genesis. Let's go back to Genesis. Here's the missing information that's not in Galatians. Because Galatians ain't talking about this subject that we're on. So you only can use piece of the verse, not the whole thing. Watch what he says right here. In verse 13. Know for surely thy seed shall be a stranger in a land not theirs. Theirs is inflective in the Hebrew text. I talked about theirs. Theirs is third person. Seed, Zerah, is one seed. That's what we're talking about in Galatians. That's the seed he's talking about in Galatians. The law came after one of the seeds. One of the seeds. It's not Isaac. You can't count Isaac. And you can't count Jacob. The reason why you can't count Isaac and Jacob, and you can't count the 12 sons either. And you can't count them 70 souls, even though that's there and that's plural. It's third person. It's pointing to something directly, definitively. It's inflexive. I won't explain it now. The point is that there's, whoever there is, that's where you start to count. Now, I'm going to tell you, it's Joseph. When Joseph dies and the new Pharaoh rose in Exodus chapter 2. That's where the affliction began. And it ends in Exodus 12. Between Exodus 2 and Exodus 12 is where the Anah begins, right there. Now, that's why if you're trying to do mathematic calculations to confirm the 400 years of Exodus 20 and 12, you ain't gonna never come. 215 doesn't work. And here's one last caveat. Abraham, does anybody know when Abraham was born? Most scholars put him early 2000, 2100. They vary. 2100 BC. Moses is 1400 BC. That's about a 600, almost 700 year gap between those two. If you start counting Abraham or Isaac or Jacob, you're going to be more than 400 years. You can't do that. It has to be after they. It has to be there. It has to be when after Joseph, after the new Pharaoh arises. That's when the count starts. And that's how you get 390 years, 40 years in the wilderness. That's 430 years. That's why your mathematics don't work. Even if you try to do it, you couldn't do it. You're going to still be off the mark. It's exactly a 400-year period after something, after someone. And it does with they, those seeds, that third party. When you look in the Hebrew text of there, it's not translated in that particular manuscript, but it'll show you its inflection and it shows third party. It's not talking about Abraham or Isaac or Jacob or the 12 patriarchs or the 70 souls of Exodus chapter 1. It is talking about after the death of Joseph. That's where the clock starts. You do anything out of that, you're going to be another 600-700 years out, and the Bible ain't going to affirm that for you.
Hey,
You'd be actually arguing for 900 or 1100 years, so that don't work.
So Antonio, he just addressed your skating issue. Now I need you to address mine.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. And by the way, Don, that man talked all that long time and didn't say nothing. Hey, I actually appreciate what you just brought out. That gives me something to chew on because, like I said, I couldn't reconcile the math. So that's something I need to look into. So I appreciate it. Plus, Antonio can't say we skate no more. Now, I'm going to go back to a question I asked earlier on and that Zadok asked and nobody has answered. What do y'all make of that fourth generation statement? If you believe that captivity in America is what is being spoken of in Genesis 15, what do you make of these two things? That fourth generation statement and the iniquity of the Amorites being fulfilled. Nobody's speaking to that.
Great question. I love questions. Oh, I love them. First of all,
Go ahead, Tommy.
Wait a minute, Tommy.
First of all, the Amorite. First of all, you got to realize what book you're in. You're in Better Sheet. This is not Tobit. This is not the book of Colossians. This is not the book of Hebrews. This is Better Sheet. This is a book of prophecy. So, one, Amorites. Amorites are those that they're ungodly people. That is a prophetic term in symbolism of an ungodly people, Amorite. It's prophetic symbolism. Now, fourth generation. How long is a generation? Now that we've come into the signed document, I didn't predict it. Just so happens, 1619, 2019, then 2020, kaboom, black suits fill the room. You know what I'm talking about? Corona and her 19 cousins. Please stop it because you may have little understanding of the book of prophecy to try to hermeneutically, and hermeneutics is just the right interpretation. I think some people need to go back. Some people are spiritually dyslexic. They don't know the difference between subject and object. However, to answer your question again, the Amorites it's a prophetic symbolism of a godless people. It's not America, the godless. I'll wait, but yeah. The generation, how much is it? I'm trying to answer your question thoroughly because I don't wear MC Hammer pants. I don't even like the way he dances. So this is prophecy. Now, what led me to this, because I had a debate with somebody about this very topic, proved with the math, with history, not only with scripture. See, some of y'all got some real confirmation bias. You only listen to what confirms what you already believe and said it, even if it's wrong. However, what I'm trying to get you to see is when I came across the scripture 12 and 40 of Exodus, 12 and 40, and realized that it meant from Canaan to Egypt, like Brother William specified, which was the promise was given to Abraham while he was in Canaan. Okay? That's what Galatians is talking about when Paul was writing about this. So that, like the Brother William said, that's absolutely correct. That's why I said, because it made me think, hey, maybe this dude Dante Fortson got a point. Then when I seen the old Negro Land map, I was like, oh, y'all better shut up talking to me. Like, get real. If you just want to keep being Mr. Sambo, poke chop, neck bone sucker, that's on you. Watermelon seed spitting religion, man. Like, let's get real with the scriptures. The scriptures is not about religion. The scriptures is a relationship with the Most High Yah.
Tom, can I ask you a clarifying question?
Okay, yeah.
So on the Amorite piece, I'm hearing you saying that's a prophetic terminology for godless nations, right?
Godless people, like another prophetic symbolism real quick, horn. Horn usually means the king or kingdom. Okay, this is some prophetic language.
Okay.
Or sometimes it'll say beast, meaning it's not really talking about it like Daniel. Daniel is not Colossians or Hebrews.
No, I got you. I just wanted to make sure I heard that part of it right.
Right. So I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna let you go ahead.
But no, because I want to make I have another piece to that. I want to make sure I'm hearing. I heard the first part right. I want to make sure I'm hearing the second part right because I'm not sure I understand.
Okay.
Can I ask you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So on that 4 generations, I'm not sure I quite grasp what your response was to that in that 4th generation.
Okay. That's a beautiful question as well. I love questions. I love them. Ooh, I do. Generation. Biblically, what I had to do, and I believe I was led by the Holy Spirit to do this, I had to find out what a generation was. I think me and Brother Tonio had this conversation. I don't like to agree with Tonio a lot, y'all. I really don't. Because one minute he be talking about Yeshua God.
Join the club, bro. Join the club.
I don't like agreeing with Tonio all the time, but right in this instance, he's right. And I have enough. I don't have that. I don't have pride where I can say just because I don't agree with this man on a lot of things he say. But in this instance, he's right. Because this is what made me start searching. When you start, it's the Most High God taught me that this is the reason why the Amorites, if we want to talk about prophetic symbolism, or godless nation or godless people, taught us religion. Got us trapped off in ideology of worshiping them through our scriptures. So that's why I say I was taught by the best, I believe, that I don't read. First of all, I don't read scripture. I don't go in scripture without prayer and asking for guidance anyway. But I don't read the book of Bereshit or Amos or Hosea. I don't read them like I would read Colossians or Galatians or James. I don't read them books. I don't read them the same. I don't read James like I read Revelation. How can you? These are prophetic books. So I think that's where we get into trouble when we don't have the right perspective, I should say, on when we're looking at the scriptures, because like a friend of mine I talked to today, and he said he's gonna beat your head in, Wiggins, Marquise. We have to study sometimes scripture 10 scriptures up, 10 scriptures down from the, and stop this cherry picking, creating these doctrines, and because we have a low understanding of the prophetic scriptures. Not land.
No, don't land. I was just going to ask you to do me a favor, bro. Bear with me. I just had oral surgery this week, and I'm having a little bit of pain, so I just took a pain pill. I'm trying to see, did I miss the 4 generations? Did you address that?
I said I had to go look up. I'm not going to do all your work for you, Brother Roger. I'm not going to do it all for you now.
You're not going to tell me what your position is on that?
I teach a man how to fit. What I'm trying to get you to see, because I'm trying to get you to see something.
Okay.
Because it's time out for us just taking people's word for it. I'm trying to get you to go into the scriptures, find out what a generation is, how long it is. Then you will start then you hopefully will get what I'm saying, because I can sit here and tell it to you, but it take too long and it take up all the room.
All right, well let me shorten this, because there's something we talked about earlier that before you were in the room, but I'll just present it to you, so now you'll be up to speed. Okay. In Matthew, I believe it's 1:17. It says from Abraham to David was 14 generations. So the reason I was asking you your understanding on that 4 generations is if we view that this prophecy is speaking directly to our time in America, the Bible is telling us it's 14 generations from Abraham to David. So I'm trying to understand.
How many years is that, Brother Raj?
I honestly, because I did. Because
that's what I'm trying to get you to do.
Hold on, brother. You gotta let me answer. You gotta let me answer.
Man, you want to just? I see what you want to do. Go ahead.
Hold on. Let me answer. Generations are different. There's different lengths of generations biblically. So I'm not even going to do the math on that. I'm just asking this.
Well, you asking me if you ain't willing to do it.
Well, hold on, bro. I'm trying to explain myself, but
I'll stop somebody wrong being slick.
No, I'm asking you a question because we have differing opinions. So I'm trying to get your understanding.
I'm trying to give it to you, and every time I try to give it to you, you try to undercut it with something slick like, well, I didn't hear you explain the generation. I said, Roger, I'm trying to get you, because you have some idea. You said from Adam to David is 14 generations, right?
That's what Matthew said. Now, Roger, that's what's written in the book of Matthew.
That's what you just said. I'm not talking about what's written. I'm talking about what I heard sonically. That's what you just said, sir. Right. So all I'm saying to you is that if you said that, that's true. That's what scripture say. Now, what you should do is find out what a generation. I know it's a prophetic generation. Then there's a generation. I know that, but I'm just saying. That was the reason I said, that's an interesting point Tonio brought up, because, man, if the whole, I've been taught my whole life, the whole Genesis 15:13 is talking about the children of Israel. And it's not. It can't be. According to what Brother William brought out, according to what scholars brought out, I ain't talking about this man-made subjective soliloquies that Don talking about. I ain't talking about all that. I'm talking about facts. So that's all I want to say.
Okay.
Boy, the pants blowing in the wind, Roger.
Right. And this is why I said I asked this question earlier, and I'm still not sure I'm really getting in. I'm not getting an understanding of anybody else's position. I don't I just want somebody to tell me what their thoughts are on it. So my question is just this. Hold on. I told you my thoughts on it. Hold on. You just don't want to do the work. Hold on. Just hold on, bro. I didn't even get my full thought out. My question was this. If the Bible tells us that from Abraham to David is 14 generations, and the Bible also told Abraham that in the 4th generation, they will come back to this land. All I'm trying to process is, if it was 14 to David, how do we take that 4 generations and apply it to America? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Why are you applying it to Egypt? I can use your same logic
You heard me say this earlier, bro. I'm not applying it to anything. I'm not applying it to anything.
Hey, Roger.
I already said the math for Egypt. Hold on. The math for Egypt didn't really make sense to me. I conceded that earlier, Tommy. You applauded me for conceding. That's what I'm saying. I'm not a. Hold on.
It's all good. I'm not going on with the same thing. It's all good.
Okay. Well, if you're done, let me finish what I'm saying so I can be done. Just let me finish what I'm saying so I can be done. What I'm saying is, I'm not attributing it to Egypt. I'm just using deductive logic and asking questions of how do we attribute it to America, and I don't hear anybody speaking to that. That's all I'm saying. So when Antonio said we skating, even if you don't like Don's math, he addressed it. Can somebody please tell me how that 4th generation can be America when the Bible tells us it was 14 generations to David? That's what I'm trying to understand, and nobody's telling me.
I would like the effort to do it. I don't think they can do it. I don't think Chosen told you he can't do all the work for you. He don't even know. You stumped him with that question. So what I would like to posit on the table is that when you read that genealogy and it gives you that from Abraham to David was 14 generations, and then from such and such to such and such, if you actually do the math, every set of generations don't equal the same amount of years. So now there's a context.
Right, that part.
Right. So for instance, y'all, when you look at Matthew 1:17 and then talk about them 14 generations, that covers roughly about 425 years. When you get to the next set, or when it talks about wait, hold on. Because I'm telling you that off my head, but actually let me get the verse in front of me. So as I say it, I can actually point to the exact text. So here, that's Matthew 1, I believe, right? That's Matthew 1.
Matthew 1. Right. Zadok, to make just a quick point while you're looking that up, you'll never find a generation in the Bible over 100 years.
Correct. That's it. But you know what?
Tommy leave?
He could have, but that's okay. So here, brethren, when it says, so all Matthew 1:17, listen closely. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. And from David to the carrying away into Babylon are 14 generations. And from the carrying away into Babylon to Christ, 14 generations. Now, what happens is we, as always, just like Cats was doing with this 400 years being America, we take everything and we talk about the Bible from an American narrative. Even when they read earlier, I think it was Santonio. Do you notice how Santonio read that almost every patriarch had their firstborn children when they were between the ages of 60 and 80? Abraham was 86, Isaac was 60, and I think he put Jacob around 65 or something like that. Santonio I think he had read, he said, yeah, so Jacob would have been this old when he had his first son. Then he said Isaac was 60, Abraham was 86 when he had Isaac. Isaac was 60 when he had Jacob, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I thought Santonio said that Jacob had his first son, which would have been Reuben, when he was 65. I could be off. He could come in and correct me if I'm quoting him wrong. But most of us reckon generations by the lifespan of modern American civilization. You're not considering generation from any other place.
And you're also considering the average life expectancy of the society. So since the average life expectancy of the society is roughly around 70 to 80 years in America, and the average American first has their children between the ages of 19 to like 25 years old, most people will have a generation be anywhere from 20 to 40 years. If you use that same context and take it back to their time, generation would be you would have to use another number. You couldn't use 20 or 40 because their life expectancy was different. Abraham lived to be 175. Jacob, I believe, lived to be 147 or something like that, or 165, and Isaac lived long. So their life expectancy and the age at which they started to have children, they were having children at the time that we would consider a person a damn senior citizen, right? So, but I don't believe that's how you should count generation. The Hebrew word dor means, it's usually translated the word generation. If you look it up, anywhere you find the word generation in your Bible, you almost gonna find the word dor. But besides it meaning generation, which has no number to it in the definition, there's two other definitions that give you the idea of what they mean by generation. Age and period of time. That's it. That's all generation means in the Hebrew. So if you look at it in Genesis 15, in the fourth period of time, they shall come back, or in the fourth age, they shall come back. You can't put a number on it. You can't say, oh, generation is 20 to 40 years. So it's either 80 to 160 years. You can't do that. Age or time. So if you look at 400 years being spoken, end of the 400th year could be what? Fourth age or the fourth period of time. If you got 400s, what's the 400? Or what would be the fourth age of the 400? That's what I believe it's saying there. Now, when you go to when you go back to Matthew, and I'll end here just for the context of generation, because the point is fair. And we can argue over the 400 years, but when you say Genesis 15 doesn't fit, you would have to be more specific and say Genesis 15 and 13 don't fit Egypt. Okay, cool. I hear your argument. So what does Genesis 15 fit in your argument? Don't come to us about our argument, because you know we're going to go to Egypt and show that they came out. Joshua 24 going to say, you dwell in, the Lord has given you the land of the Amorites that you dwell in this day. So we can clearly prove that when the children of Israel came out, they took the land of the Amorites from them. Easy. But for the 400 American, the 400 years in American brethren, now that the 400 years is ended in 2019, tell us what you're looking for in the future, because I know you may not point to who the Amorites are now. Our brother came on and said Amorite is symbolic for evil person. He has no proof of that. He would have been better off going to Goliath.
Dog? What was that all about? I'm like, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know what? To be fair, I think he gave it an allegorical meaning, and that's okay. But that wasn't satisfactory enough for me. So when you go to Matthew again, for any of you who would teach Matthew is consistent, now you have to explain why the years of generations are equal. So once again, I'm just going to say it for everyone in the room to hear. When it says that from Abraham to David was 14 generations, that's roughly from 10, that's roughly from hold on, I'm sorry, y'all. I read it wrong. That would be about 1,000, roughly about 1,050 years between Abraham and David. And that was called 14 generations. When you go to from David to the Babylonian captivity, that is roughly 425 years. In the third set, which said from the end of the Babylonian captivity to Jesus, that's 580 years. So when it says 14 generations 3 times, generation does not mean 20 years, it don't mean 40 years, and it don't mean 100 years in Matthew. So what Brother Roger asked challenges any of our narratives to explain, because whoever believes that the 4th generation means something, you're on the hook. But you know why they won't be able to explain it, Roger? Because they can't explain what hasn't happened yet. The only thing that they believe has happened so far is the 400 years has ended. So they can't really tell you what the fourth generation after the 400 years mean. And if they do, then they're going to have to point to some sort of years. Maybe they believe it's maybe by 2040 we'll be gone. They're going to have to explain the fourth generation, and they have to explain the Amorites. I will say that at least Chosen efforted by saying it was allegorical. He pulled the Yaju on us.
He pulled a Charleston shuffle on us. That's what he did.
Now going back to Zadok's point, I got to make a point from what Zadok said because I've been in and out, but I did hear him say, and I'll address that one question when he said that when the 400 years are up, which was to be 2019, where are we now? I think a bunch of us have addressed.
No, sis, that wasn't my question. I said, what is the fourth? Can you explain what the fourth generation is? That's all.
No, I'm addressing that one question. I said I was just going to address that one that you mentioned about the 400 years, and with it being 2019. Am I right? Did you ask that question?
No, that wasn't my question. I said, now that the 400. Wait, sis, let me put my question since you were in and out. The 400 years is over in August of 2019, if it correlates with August of 1619 point comfort. So the 400 years is ended now. So now, continuing in Genesis 15, there is the children are going to come back to the land in the fourth generation because the sins of the Amorites aren't full. I'm just asking, how is that explained in the American 400-year narrative now that the 400 years is ended? What are you all looking at as the fourth generation to represent?
Now, when I say that, when they say
the Amorites.
So with the Amorites, we've already made it clear that the Amorites have not been destroyed, right or wrong. The Amorites are still, they're not dead, correct? Because I think, Roger, earlier you stated that I think in so many words, and just correct me if I'm wrong, you made it seem as if the Amorites were no more.
No, ma'am. I asked a question of Brother Clifford, and he led us to the scripture that has now been read several times, Joshua 24, where the children actually went into the land and took the land of the Amorites. Joshua led them in. That was done. They dealt with the time of the Amorites. So what I'm asking now is, if this is current, where do the Amorites fit into this? Because we see where they fit in. Back then, Joshua dealt with them. Mm-hmm. It's in the book of Joshua 24. So how are you guys tying in the Amorites, and how are you tying in the fourth generation to today? I have no answer for that.
Oh no! Wait 1 second. I'm looking at something. Hold on. So I'm looking at the scripture. I'm going back into the scripture. So let's go back.
I bet you is looking at something. I bet you is. Mm-hmm. Is.
Don Bird, going back to my original point, you can't prove to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that the 400 years is totally tied to Egypt. Because just like y'all are throwing it on us, y'all can't eat.
Well, hold on. I think we can. Take that back. Take that back. Let me rephrase. I already told y'all, I'm not trying to tie it to Egypt specifically. Mm-hmm. That is my belief, but I'm not willing to be dogmatic, right? Mm-hmm. What I am saying is, dogmatically, it don't make no sense to tie it to 2019. That's what I'm saying. If there's anything we can't do, it's tying that passage of scripture directly to the year 2019.
So I have a quick question. So when we read, and this is just a question. So when we look at Genesis 15, and let's read through it, 13, it says, "Then the Lord said unto him, know for certainty that the 400 years of your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and they will be enslaved and mistreated there." That's 13. Going into 14. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterwards they will come out with great possession. Going into 15. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. And in the fourth generation, your descendants will come back here for the sins of the Amorites. So it seems like, and I'm just telling y'all what I'm getting from these paragraphs, that they're talking about two different things. They're not necessarily saying that 13 and 14 is related to the fulfillment of the Amorites. It seems like he's saying here in 13, these are the things that are going to happen. He said you're going to be in there for 400 years, your descendants in a country that's not your own. And then when you go into 14, it says, but I will punish that nation and enslave them. So he's talking about that nation. And he said, however, you will go.
Did you say enslave? Punish and enslave?
Roger, let me finish.
No, I'm just trying to get clarity. I want to make sure I heard you right.
So it says, but I will punish the nation that they serve as slaves, and afterwards they will come out with great possession. So that's 13 and 14. But then it skips over to 15 and he starts back going to talking to Abraham and saying, you, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried there at a good old age. And in the fourth generation, your descendants will come back here, for the sins of the Amorites will be fulfilled. So this is what I'm getting. It seems as if 13 and 14, he's just explaining the captivity and what's going to transpire. But when you go into 15 and 16, it goes into another part of the conversation where he's explaining to Abraham that, you know what, this is what's going to happen. You're not going to go there. You're going to die, and your descendants are going to come back to you. And I guess I said in the fourth generation, your descendants will come back here, for the sins of the Amorites will be reached to the full. So it seems like it's two different things being said here. One end, he's explaining to what's going to happen to his descendants in 13 and 14. 15 and 16, he's just telling Abraham, ultimately, this is what's going to happen to you. Is that what I'm getting?
I can rock with that. And my question is, how do you apply that fourth generation?
But the thing is, if you look at 13 and you're looking at 14, it's dealing with the curses or what's going to transpire within that 14, within the 400 years, because nowhere between 13 and 14 did he mention anything in reference to the Amorites. He just tells, well, this is what's going to happen to the children of Israel. 13 and 14, this is what's going to transpire. You're going to be enslaved in a country that's not your own. And then it goes into afterwards, you will leave with great possession.
Okay, pause right there. Pause right there.
Stop, Roger. Let me stop. Let me finish. And then we can hop. So he stopped it right there and said, you're going to leave with great possession. Bam, we're done. Now, Abraham, however, you will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the fourth generation, your descendants will come back here for the sins of the Amorites. So that right there is just dealing with his descendants. That doesn't seem like those are two different things, Roger. And Zadok, they don't even seem like they even correlate.
Okay, can we walk that? Can we walk with it? Okay. Let me pull it up so I'm looking at it with you. Just 1 second. I was going to have you read it, but I want to look at it with you, so give me just a second to pull it up. Genesis 15, starting in 13, right? Mm-hmm. God said to Abraham, know for a certainty that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs. The discussion we're having is, and the difference of opinion is, whether this is Egypt or America, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So they're going to go and be strangers in the land that's not theirs.
So let me go back. We're more so discussing first, has it transpired already within Egypt, or has it not transpired? And is he speaking to the people of the not just within America, but it's the Americans. So yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. And again, for me specifically, because I can't make that 400 years make sense in Egypt, I'm not even trying to pin it to Egypt. I'm just trying to say it can't be America. That's my position, right? So here's what we are. Here's where we are. They're going to be strangers in the land that's not theirs, where they will be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years, right? That's the whole contention. The America situation in Egypt, because they're both 400-ish, right? Mm-hmm.
14. But I will also judge the nation whom they will serve, and afterwards they will come out with many possessions. Let's pause right there.
Let's pause right there. Now, who is he speaking to, and who is he speaking about?
But I will also, he's speaking to Abraham.
About who?
About his seed, about his descendants.
About it being Israel, correct?
That's my opinion, yes.
Okay, so then jump to 15 and 16. He's telling Abraham what's going to...
Hold on. We're going to walk this, so we can't skip 14. So 14, again, let's walk 14. But I will also judge the nation whom they will serve, and afterwards they will come out with many possessions. Like I already said, I'm not even trying to pin this to Egypt, but that did happen in Egypt, did it not? They walked out.
But it wasn't 400 years that they
Hold on. I'm just going verse by verse.
I'm answering your question, Roger. Just listen to what I'm saying. When you go into Genesis 15 and 13, when it talks about 400 years, they wasn't oppressed 400 years. Let's be realistic. How are they oppressed again in a nation that their brother Joseph was a governor?
Right. That's why I told you. I conceded this a long time ago. I can't quite make the math on the 400 years in my mind make sense. So I'm going to give you that. I'm not going to dogmatically say this is Egypt, but these are the two positions most people take. This is Egypt or America. I'm not taking that position. The one position I'm taking is it can't be America. That's my only position. So I want to walk through these scriptures that we just read individually and break them down. We got through 13. Now I just want to get through 14 all by itself.
Hey, Roger, as you and E are about to start 14 again, I just want to say she is technically right with the point that she's making, but I would argue that her and everyone who agrees with her ought to consider. It's not saying that they would be afflicted for 400 years alone. It's saying they would be strangers in the land that's not there. That's what happens within that 400 years. And they will also be afflicted and oppressed. The reason why that has to be on the table is because even if we want to use America, right now, there is no one on this panel who is afflicted and oppressed and enslaved. You are all free to live where you want to go, travel where you want to go. So I'm just saying that the context of our 400 years here does not include 400 years of chattel slavery and bondage in that narrative. So even though chattel slavery is a part of our American experience, right now, me, construction company owning, taking trips to Japan, going anywhere I want, free passports, go to any country. I could be like W.E.B. Du Bois and announce my American citizenship and live in another country. And the American government will sign the papers if I say I am rejecting my citizenship. That right there has to be acknowledged that the 400 years here does not mark 400 years of hard bondage.
Well, if you look at the scripture in the sense of the word, Genesis 15 and 13, it says enslaved and mistreated. You can't say that there's no level of mistreated when it comes to our people. When you have laws that have been in place and they've just now removed anti-lynching law. Now, we got to be honest that you're just now.
No, hey, Sister E, you're correct.
No. It goes back into saying that.
Correct.
He agreed with you, sis. He agreed with you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. My phone rang. I'm sorry, Zadok.
Hey, correct. Because my point.
I did want to say one thing though, if I could.
Yeah, hold on for a second. The point that I'm making, Sister E, is that it hard bondage. If we understand that the 400 years here don't mean hard bondage, even if you want to add, okay, we're not in chattelness right now, but we can still see that there's elements of our people who get mistreated. That's fine. That same thing applies to Egypt. They were being mistreated, and they had a period there where they were in hard bondage. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, but I'm still going back to my original point because
I appreciate y'all for letting me jump in right quick.
Yeah, Zayda, you kind of threw me off, bro. Like, let's continue to walk this, Sister. We got past 13. We got past 13, so let's do 14 again. It says, but I will also judge the nation whom they will serve, and afterwards they will come out with many possessions.
Now stop right there. Stop right there, right?
We're going to pause right there. That's the end of 14.
So let's pause. So we got to look at who God, we know God was speaking to Abraham in reference to the odd. Who was he speaking of? He was speaking of Israel, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so let's go on through. Now look, now you can go to 15.
No. We're not done with 14. Now I was letting you get your. Yeah, so it says, but I will judge the nation whom they will serve, and afterwards they'll come out with many possessions. Did that or did that not happen in Egypt?
There was no 400 years ago.
No. See, you're conflating.
You can't stop, Roger. You can't go to that one point.
Yes, we're walking through the verses that you read.
But we're walking through the verses, and we got to look at 13. If I say yes, they did walk out with great. Stop, Roger. 1 second. You can say yes, they walk out with great possession. But let's go back to this 400 years. They were not in captivity. Roger, they were not in captivity for 400 years. You got to look at the point of this. Listen to these these scriptures. It's a trigger to this. This is an indicator, and we got to look at the indicators within the scripture. The indicator for 13 is 400 years. Bam. Dude, let's check that out. Bam. That didn't happen because guess what? In the midst of that 400-year period, there was an interruption there called their brother Joseph. Their brother Joseph was a governor in that particular area. He had his people, the 12 tribes, to come into Egypt because there was a famine, because he was trying to make sure that they were, they didn't they didn't come up short pretty much with the famine ultimately. So he pulled them in. So that right there breaks that 400-year timeline, because Joseph was the governor. Even when they left. So you get what I'm saying? That 400 year, that was an interruption there. So we got to check that off, saying that's the biggest indicator right there, out the door. That can't be the 400-year prophecy, because it was not 400 years.
Okay, can I respond? Because I'm trying to walk with you, because you read these passages, and I want to walk with you. We already covered 13, but I'm willing to go back there. But I think Zadok made the point that you're just making. There's not a consistent 400-year period in America where we can say that these conditions fit us.
Yes, it is. Rogers, one second. Roger, hold on. Let's go back into the difference in what happened in Egypt and what's going on in America. Again, they were not mistreated when Joseph was over there.
That's not true. Joseph was, Sister E, Joseph was treated racistly.
One second.
Because the Egyptians didn't eat with him the whole time he was there.
But they still made him a governor, and he
was an abomination though. They still didn't eat with him. That don't matter. They didn't eat with him.
But it doesn't matter. He was still.
But he was mistreated. That's all I'm telling you.
But he was not mistreated during the time.
He was.
No, he was not. Show me where he was mistreated.
Okay, so when he sat his brothers down to dinner and didn't reveal himself yet, it says he separated his brothers at their own table, and he ate at his own table because it was an abomination to the Egyptians to eat with Hebrews. So what I'm saying is, just like Daniel was in captivity and was the third in the kingdom of Babylon, yet his prayer in Daniel, let me finish. His prayer in Daniel 9 shows that he recognized he was still in captivity, even though he was the third man. He was 3 men under Nebuchadnezzar in the entire Babylonian government. If we read the Bible,
now let's go back over this.
Joseph,
how can you possibly compare that?
How can you compare that to what's going on over here in America? How can you, bro? All right,
I'll hold the mic. Turn it off.
I'll hold the mic, bro.
Hold the mic. Because at the end of the day, you would get most of y'all, if y'all voted in this country, voted for a black president. Right now, the leader of the Pentagon is a black man. Wait, hold on. Let me finish. One of the most famous secretary generals in the history of the United States government just died a couple years ago, right? Colin Powell. What I'm saying is, if we want to point to people of prominence, you can't get no higher. Basically, Barack Obama was Pharaoh, if you want to compare the office. So what I'm saying is, Joseph didn't get to eat the whole time that he was in Egypt as governor. He was Pharaoh, man, but that don't mean everybody loved him. And they did not eat with him because it was an abomination for them to eat with a Hebrew.
So quick question.
So is that fair treatment or mistreatment? I just want to hold on. Is that fair treatment or mistreatment? Is that mistreatment?
Let's go back to my original point, and I'm going to take you back here. I'm going to take you back to my original point. No, I'm going to ask you one question before I answer yours.
Is that mistreatment?
Were they in captivity at the time?
Joseph was.
No, Joseph.
Wait, hold on. Joseph was sold as a slave. Joseph was sold as a slave. He was a captive. He came into Egypt a captive. He was sold as a slave. Joseph was thrown. Joseph was thrown in prison because he was wrongly convicted of rape. And then when Joseph was let out of prison and Pharaoh had mercy on him, other Egyptian officials still wouldn't eat with the man. So what I'm saying is he was mistreated.
At the time of his rulership, Jacob said, "I don't do that."
I'm done. I'm done. I ain't got nothing else to say. I'm done.
Roger, because you didn't make a point, Zadok. I love you.
I made a point.
But
you just won't see it. I made a point. I know I made a point. I made a point.
Pause 1 second. You still didn't make a point because yet and still, Joseph was not a slave when he became a governor. When he brought his brothers in, they did not go into captivity until after Joseph's death.
Sis, but your point you're making, sis, that was never my point. I said
you moved the goalpost, my brother, because yet
I did not. You're moving the goalpost because you know your argument is weak. When I brought up the fact that Sister E is not a slave in America. You're not a slave. You are not a slave.
We're still in a country that's not our own, ultimately.
And Joseph was in a country that was not his own. It wasn't.
Back into,
Sister E,
didn't he name? Years, even when they stepped foot in Egypt, it was not 400 years.
Sister E, you know what? Sister E, you know why you can't see it? Because you so fixed on what you believe that you are minimizing what happened. Sister E, Joseph named his children according to his sorrow. Wait, hold on. He named his children. He named his children.
When you get done, it's because the same thing with you. The same thing you said about me.
I can't finish.
Same thing with you.
Right. And that's why we won't agree. So I'm done talking about it because I know we won't agree. There is nothing I could say. There is nothing I could say. You'd see. There is nothing I could say that you would agree with.
15. I answered your question from 13 to 15.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. Yes,
I did.
Sis, hold on. Let me just do this because here was my point. This is what I was trying to
Roger, it's not gonna work. Roger, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. Hold on. Because I'm gonna leave, and I just want y'all to know this room exists because of a conversation I've been a part of. All right. So what I'm telling you all is this. And she know I love her, but I don't mind saying this in front of everybody. Yes, she made a point that the 400 years don't add up when you count the Egypt thing. So you ceded that point to her, but then you said, okay, so now let's look at the other points. Did God judge Egypt and did the children of Israel leave with great substance? She couldn't just say yes or no, because she know if she said yes or no, those points would be valid.
Every single nation
and then,
hold on.
Is valid except 400 years.
Zedok, do me a favor. Do me a favor, Zedok.
Every single time.
Yeah, I'm done.
No.
I'm done.
Zedok, don't leave. Sister E, hold on, please. All I'm trying to do is walk through the same 3 verses you walked through. You walked through them. You asked me questions. I answered, right? And so all I asked was, I tried to interject as you were walking through, and you said, no, let me finish all of them. And then I just requested, can we walk each verse? If you will allow me to do that, I'll get off the mic. It's only 3 verses, 4 verses. If we can do that, I'll get off the mic. But once we clear a verse, we can't go back to it. That's what we're doing right now. We cleared 13. We was on to 14, and now I'm talking about 14, and you jumping back to 13. Can you walk with me? Because if we don't want to walk with me, I'm okay.
I'm listening. I'm listening.
Okay. So we got through 13. Can we move on past that 400 years? I already conceded to you that the math on the 400 years, I can't really reconcile in my head. I'm conceding that. Can we move on to 14?
Yes.
Okay. 14. But I will also judge the nation whom they will serve, and afterward they will come out with many possessions. Did that happen in Egypt?
Yes, it did.
Okay. That's all I'm saying. Let's move on to 15. As for you, so now this is that transition.
So stop right there. Let me stop right there because I want to pause right there. So now let's talk about, he moved from talking about Israel and what's going to transpire as far as the future prophecy.
Can I ask you a favor? Can I ask you a favor?
Uh-huh.
When you were reading and you didn't want me to interrupt you, can I read it?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead. Let me read it because I was just going to point out what you're pointing out. He says, as for you, that's that transition that you're talking about. He went from talking about the children of Israel to now talking to Abraham, right? As for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You will be buried at a good old age. That's all of verse 15. I don't think either one of us have any qualms about that. There was a transition in the discussion, right? We agree?
Continue reading.
Okay. Verse 16. Then in the 4th generation, that then is directly linked to the previous verse, which is talking about him going to his fathers in peace and being buried at a good old age. Then in the 4th generation, they will return here, for the iniquity of the Amorite is not yet complete. So even though I'm not going to stand...
Roger, stop.
Hold
Stop
on,
right there, because you're reading the New American Standard. If you read the King James, there is no then. It says, but in the 4th generation they shall come hither again.
Okay,
so
let me use that terminology so everybody in the room can understand. In verse 15 it says, as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You will be buried at a good old age. But then, is that the word you're looking for? But then in the 4th generation, they, meaning your children, your descendants, will return here.
Roger, and then was nowhere in the King James Version. It says, but in the 4th generation.
Okay, excuse me. But in the 4th generation, after you have gone to your fathers in peace, after you have died at a good old age, but in the 4th generation, after that event, they will Hold on.
Stop that. Don't say after that event because it's not in there. It just says, read it like this. But
let me just read these two together straight through using your terminology.
But don't add any extra words.
I'm not. That's what I said. I'm gonna use the terminology.
Nowhere in the scripture.
Okay, sis. I'm gonna use the terminology that you desire, and I'm gonna leave everything else out.
You're gonna read the scripture.
It is. You're reading from a different translation, so I'm gonna read it the way you want it read.
Nowhere in any translation, as I look at it right now, event is nowhere in there. So leave that out. So stop adding.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Can I read it?
But leave event out because then when you add in the event,
can I read it?
To it. Yeah, you can read it, but make sure you read it word for word.
As for you, You shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried at a good old age. Here's the King James Version. But in the fourth generation, they will return here, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. Is that read okay for you? Okay, so here's the point that I've been trying to make all night long. You've addressed your 400 years. I've conceded. I can't wrap my mind around that, which is why I'm not dogmatically placing this in any time frame, because I can't do the math on it. I can't make that make sense. Make this make sense. What
and
is
I made it make sense. I made it make sense.
I ain't even asked the question yet.
Well, go ahead, Roger. Ask the question. You taking all day though to get to that question.
I really ain't. If you don't look, I can let it go right now.
You know what?
Want to answer the question or no?
She don't want to answer that question. Let me bring
the question is.
I don't need you to answer
simply, the question is simply, what is this fourth generation he's talking about? Right after Abraham dies, and where do the Amorites fit into your America scenario?
So it goes back into...
Let me finish. Sis, can I finish?
Okay, don't finish. Don't finish.
Because we can show you again, biblically, where that Amorite scenario played out in Joshua. We can show you that this took place after Egypt. And I'm not even going to argue that this is Egypt. But all I'm saying is, if it is America, how is it that 4 generations is like 4,000 years later?
So, question: if you're taking it all the way to Joshua, you're taking it all the way to Joshua now, that exceeds that 4th generation if you look at it from your standpoint.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. If you want to look at it from a 4th generation, you're thinking about it at the
time. Do me a favor. I would love to have that discussion with you, and I'm more than willing to stay up all night and have that particular point discussion with you if you can answer my question. How do you tie that to America in 2019 or 2022? That's what I've been trying to get to, and nobody's addressing it. And now you're talking about Joshua. Joshua's at least in that time frame.
You said Joshua.
No, I'm pointing out that the Bible shows Joshua dealing with these Amorites. I'm asking you, how do these Amorites play into this prophecy being directed at our time frame? How do you match that up?
So I'm not directing the Amorites to that time frame. I'm directing the Amorites to the discussion that God had with Abraham about the end result of what's going to happen to him. Because ultimately he said, you, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. Mm-hmm. And then it goes into 16, because we're talking about 13 and 14. He's addressing Israel and what's going to transpire with them, 13 and 14. Mm-hmm. We established that. When he transitions into 15, he's speaking to Abraham to say, this is what's going to happen to you, Abraham. Mm-hmm. You'll go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. Mm-hmm. And the 4th generation, your descendants will come back here for the sins of the Amorites. So he's telling him that your descendants will come back to him, but it does not relate to 13 and 14. He's telling
but sis, this is why I asked you to walk with me verse by verse, because we already went through 13 exhaustively. Mm-hmm. We went through 14 exhaustively. We talked about 15.
Wait a minute, 1 second. So we went through 13 and 14.
Hold on. Let me, please. I'm asking. This is my chance to address. Sister
how you gonna do that now? Okay,
but you already read this. You already read it. You asked me questions. I answered your questions. I answered your questions. I'm asking you to answer mine, because we already addressed 13. Sis, I can't.
Nothing to do. So when Egypt,
really, you're not gonna let me talk?
I'm trying to answer your question, Roger.
But I haven't even got the question out. We keep revisiting the same passages that we already covered. We dealt with 13 explicitly. We dealt with 14 explicitly. You even brought up the King James Version of 15 so I could read it properly for you explicitly. Now I'm in 16 and I have some explicit questions that you are not dealing with. How do you apply that 4th generation to America in 2020? And how do you apply those Amorites to America in 2020? I have not gotten an answer.
I'm not applying that to America. What you don't
realize then you're not applying the scripture.
No. You're not going to do that either. Because again, when you talk about 15 and 16, he's directly telling Abraham what's going to happen to him. That's related to Abraham and him.
No, 15 is directed to him, not 16.
No, 15 and 16 are both
not 16.
Stop, Roger. You're gonna let me talk, Roger. That's what you're gonna let me do. Now I've let you talk. You won't.
But sis, that's not accurate. 16 is talking about the children.
Let me get my point out.
Okay, so you want to be false with the scriptures. I'll yield.
No, I'm not going to be false with the scriptures, because when you look at 15, he's talking to Abraham that he's going to go to his ancestors and in peace and going to be buried at a good age.
What's 16 talking about?
And it has. I don't think this has anything to do with 13 and 14. In the discussion.
Why am I asking you
because
about
he
16?
transitions.
You keep jumping back to 13 and 14.
Because the end result, of what's going to happen to Israel is in 14. Right. The end result.
So you're going to cancel out 16. You're not going to deal with that at all.
I'm not canceling out 16.
Well, then deal with it. Can you answer my question?
Just deal with
it. No, you're not. You're going back to 13 and 14. You're not dealing with 16.
Roger. Hey, Roger. I think she's telling you she don't think that has anything to do with America, but I hope she would tell us what it is talking about. It don't have to be America. What is it talking about? Explain to us what it is talking about.
That's all I'm asking. I don't care what it is. I'm not tying it to Egypt. I already told you. I let go of that. But I'm asking, how does that apply to America? And if it ain't America,
saying that
or what does it apply to, Roger?
It does not apply to America. I'm saying
what does it apply to, sis?
What does it apply to?
What does it apply to?
It deals with Abraham and the fourth generation. It has nothing to do with America. I didn't say 16 had anything to do with America.
Okay, so what does it have to do with? What does it have to do with?
It does not apply.
It doesn't apply to anything?
It doesn't apply to
apply to, sister.
What does it apply to?
You asked me about. Now, I can't directly tie to it. I'm going to have to do some more research, but it does not tie to America. I never said it ties to America.
That's all I'm asking, sis. That's all I've been asking.
I never said it tied to America.
Now here's where we can agree. Here's where we can agree. Hold on. Let me be in agreement with my sister. Sister E, I'm going to agree with you that 400 years and Egypt, I can't really wrap my mind around that.
I didn't say 13 and 14.
Hold on, sis. I'm trying to agree. Can I agree for a minute? I'm just trying to agree with you. Both of us are acknowledging something. And I think that's important as we talk about these scriptures. I don't know the math on that. That doesn't make sense to me personally in my human mind. But I conceded that. For you to concede that 16 doesn't apply to America, it's us making progress. I don't care. You don't have to apply it to anything for me. I don't care. But I don't see how it applies to America, and that's all I've been saying. And you just agreed that it does. You agree it doesn't apply to America. We're on the same page then.
But the thing is, 13 and 14 does.
Okay, and we can talk about that later, but we made progress finally. That's why
it ain't no progress. Don't make it progress like y'all done broke me in. No, I've always thought
who said that? Who said that? Why are you taking it like that? Progress is a good thing. I ain't saying nothing about breaking.
Because she's talking past you. Hey, you know what? Hey, y'all. Hey, Sister E, this was a good room. If you do a part 2 to this tomorrow, God willing, I'll get a chance to participate. But I do want to let you know, as the brother Gary posted in the chat, in Genesis 41, I gotta believe Joseph over everybody. When he named his son Ephraim, just as I said, he said, God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. In some translations, it says my suffering, and in the Aramaic Bible, it says in the land of my bondage. So, but let's believe what Joseph called him being in Egypt. God had favor on him, but he was still in bondage or affliction. In his own words, he even named his son that, hey, I'm doing well in the land of my bondage, just as Daniel did well in the land of his bondage, to the point he was third in Babylon. Third. 2 people from Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel was the third most important person in Babylon, but he was in bondage. And if we can't believe what Joseph said, then I know that we're just really trying to stick to a point that no matter what can be said, I got to hold on to this point.
let me bring something new to the table. Because it is obviously clear where we don't know things, and it ain't going to get nowhere like that. I want to bring something new to the table. Let us turn to Genesis 50. I wanted to do this point by point, but somebody didn't want to do that. And now somebody ass over there in the corner pressured.
Who? Your ass? That's your ass that's pressured. Sir, because by no means am I pressured. Because one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stand 10 toes deep. Not pressured by any means.
But what I'm doing,
but what I'm going to do is I'm going to read these scriptures and try and figure out what does it really mean. I'm not going to take word for word and say, okay, this is what it means. No, I'm going to sit here and read it and say, okay, that doesn't make sense. Because the thing is, we got to realize that transitions happen throughout the scripture. 1 minute, the Most High could have been talking about one thing, and he'll transition and start talking about another thing. We know this transpires in the scriptures. So, Don, nobody's pressured. Quit it, sir. Trying to build some type of case as if...
I believe that. I believe that. Sure,
I do. Stop it. So stop it.
This is the book of Genesis 50.
So what other new foolishness you finna bring up? Because you know you finna go and write on that fake whiteboard.
You know what? Your mouth needs to be shut right now.
No, my mouth don't need to be shut. I'm gonna keep talking.
You about to say something real crazy.
No, go ahead, keep writing on that fake whiteboard. We waiting on it. And being honest, we are gonna have to wrap this room up. It is 1:30, and I do have to get up in the morning. But go ahead and continue on with this fake whiteboard that you said you finna throw something out there.
This thing you said it was. This is Genesis 50. I'm gonna bring something new to the table. You ain't heard nothing yet. All y'all silly filibustering ain't gonna work for you. And Joseph dwelled in. I need to mute up because there's too much echoing or something. I don't know what that is. Echo. And Joseph dwelled in Egypt, and he in his father's house, and Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph is not in the affliction. He goes through affliction from several instances, but it don't have nothing to do with what Genesis is saying. I will put that out there. It's not one person. I already qualified that when we talked about, and the very next verse is a kill shot. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the third generation. The children also of Machir and the son of Manasseh were brought up upon Joseph's knees. There's 3 generations right there in Egypt. I'll say it again. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children of
I'm trying to figure out what this kill. I'm trying to figure out what this kill shot is. Because even though you're talking about third generation doesn't necessarily mean 400 years.
Figure out the kill shot.
Just like, stop. So stop right there. Madison is a third generation from my mom. From me to my mom and then my daughter. That's the third generation. That is not equivalent to 300 years. Stop. You said third generation. You opened your raggedy mouth and we finna deal with what third generation means. Third generation does not equate to 300 years. Third generation can equate to, let's say, 75
That's why it's a kill shot.
Stop. Right? That's not because we're talking about 400 years. We've established.
You don't even know what they're talking about.
Stop. We already established.
Just like you didn't know Roger's question.
16. Stop it. Stop trying. I can mute you though. Thank you. All right. So stop it with the crap, Don, because we know third generation. When we're talking about 400 years, it has nothing to do far as third generation. Third generation is, so you're saying third generation is equivalent to 300 years. Please don't say that, Don, because third generation can be 75 years. That's 75.
Is equal to 390 years.
That's not 300 years. That's not third generation. Is not third generation. Third generation is not 300 years.
Just because you deny something, that don't mean you got.
So Madison is third generation. I'm second generation.
We're not talking about. We're talking about my kid.
No. We're talking about time. We're talking about numbers.
This ain't
personal. Let me mute you real quick because I'm getting my point out. Thank you.
So
when we're talking about third generation.
That's what you do.
Third, you're gonna get moved. Now you know I got the power to do that.
I don't care about that.
Keep unmuting. So at the end of the day, Third generation is not equivalent to 300 to 400 years.
Yeah,
third generation is stop it. Third, that kill shot is dead out the water. Dead out the water. So third generation. Third generation is not equivalent. Okay, third generation is not equivalent to 300 years. So I'm trying to figure out, or 400 years. I'm really trying to figure out where you are going with this.
Still trying to figure out what is this?
We're talking about 400 years. 400 years. So you done hopped in the train to decide, oops, I'm going to show her. Third generation. How many years is third generation is it equivalent to? How many years could that be? You're not proving anything.
Look, all I did was read the verse. Now, can you explain what this means?
No, stop. So I explained it to you. Third generation has nothing to do with 13 and 14. When you talk about 13,
in the verse.
Stop.
Stop.
No, I'm not twisting the verse.
Yes, you are.
Third generation.
This hot sauce and mayonnaise on it.
Like I said, third generation has nothing to do with 13 and 14, because third generation, when you look at it from a timing and years, it's probably equivalent to probably like maybe 90. I give them 100 years.
You're guessing.
Stop. No, stop.
You're guessing.
Stop. So you saying third generation is 300 years done? How many years is third generation? No. Well, no. Tell me what you mean about. Give me your math. What is third generation to you? How many years?
The math.
Your math though. Come on. Give me that math though. Because even then, you shot yourself in the foot with the comment you made.
Woman, are you a debater?
Third years. If you said third generation,
are you trying to?
It doesn't matter. We're talking about that. Don't do that. But when you're talking about third generation in the Bible, when you're talking about third generation, when Joseph said third generation, you killed yourself with that argument.
Didn't say Joseph said anything.
Joseph, there is nowhere.
Just like you try to correct Roger, I'm gonna correct you. It don't say he said anything.
Okay, hold on 1 second. So third generation is not equivalent to 300 to 400 years. Third generation is maybe equivalent to 100.
You heard the verse and you already.
Don't stop. So you said third generation. You shot yourself.
Listen to the verse. Matter of fact, once you turn to it, I'll read it again.
Don't read it. I'm listening.
And Joseph saw, not said, saw, Ephraim's children of the third generation.
So what's your point with that?
The children also of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were brought up upon Joseph's knees. Do you understand that?
So what's your point with that? Are you saying that's equivalent to 400 years, Don?
No, you tell me what you think it means.
No. Because I can tell you that's not equivalent to 400.
You've been arguing all night.
So I'm just asking you, are you saying, let's go back, Don, are you saying that's equivalent to 400 years, Don? Are you saying, because he said third, well, so tell me what your point is. You made the point.
I started out with this conversation with Sunecdoke. And I've already gave the number. It's 390 years.
So you're saying wait a minute. Are you saying the third generation? Joseph said he saw the third generation. Are you saying that's 390 years done?
Yeah, see, I knew that was going to bust somebody in the eyeball. Hush, Gal.
That means that everybody has a child at the age of 100.
You're talking to Pro Rizzo 1. You're not talking to Mr. Scallywag around the corner.
I'm done.
You've been done.
Is equivalent. Don, be quiet, sir. You said third generation is equivalent to 390 years. I'm done for the night. All right, Saints. I'm going to go to bed.
Hey, E, before you leave, you said that you believe there's a difference between verse 16 that comes after 15 that talks about Abraham's death and what verse 13 and 14 are talking about. So it seems to me from everything I've heard tonight, you got 13 and 14 being basically America. That's what I believe you believe. But then it goes, so he tell him about the future of America with, his descendants going to America. Then he comes back to him basically talking about his lifetime. You gonna die. And then the next verse says, but in the fourth generation, they shall come back here, meaning basically where Abraham was at the time God was talking to him. Whatever the fourth generation is, they're coming back here, for the sins of the Amorites are not finished. So do you believe that? So I'm under the impression you don't, since you told Roger that verse 16 has nothing to do with 13 and 14.
It doesn't.
Right. So what is? But I believe since you're so sure of 13 and 14, you're not as sure on what 16 is talking about. You just know it's not connected to America, right? I think that's your position so far.
You know, because the conversation, it goes back into what I originally said. 15 and 16 were transitions. On one part of the conversation, let me explain. Let me elaborate. 13 and 14, he was directly speaking to Abraham in reference to the end result of what's going to happen to the Israelites. That's why he ended it right there and said they're going to leave with great possession. Then he transitioned into the other part of the conversation. And it was like he was literally saying, but you, Abraham, this is what's going to happen. So that right there, 15 and 16 was related to Abraham and what's going to transpire with him and how his generations are going to come back. That right there.
Come back from where? Come back from where?
Let's go back and read it.
No. I'm asking you, because if they're coming back here again, that means they went somewhere.
It doesn't tell you from where, though. You just like you're trying to make me find a where. You can't find a where either. You can't equate that.
We know the where. Since I know the where. And verse 6, no, I'm not dealing with 13 and 14. I'm dealing with just strictly verse 16. When it says they shall come back here again, do you know where they're coming from? Because we know it's not America, because you told us, at least in your estimation to this point, 16 is not America. So when he says they will come back here again in the fourth generation, do you have an idea of where they might be coming back from? They don't have to be America, according, because that's not what you believe. But they are somewhere, and wherever they are, it's not where Abraham is at the moment. In the fourth generation, they're going to come back here. So do you have an idea of where they went? Because wherever they is, they got to come from there back to where Abraham was when God was having a conversation with him. It's in the land of Canaan, of course.
Hold on one second. Hold on. Oh, no. I'm holding on because I heard something. Don't play with me, Don. So let's go back to your original point. So yes, they possibly could have come back from Canaan. I'm not knocking that. But ultimately what I'm saying is this. 16 still does not relate to that 400-year prophecy.
Sis, you keep going back there, and that's fine. I don't really care about that, because that's your point. But you can't. My point. You can't explain 16, right?
Don't filibuster me.
Sis, I feel that's what you're doing, because you're not answering my question.
I'm answering your question. 16.
Where did they come from?
Oh my gosh. You're not going to do that, Zadok. You're going to let me answer the question, and you're not going to overtalk me. That's what you're not going to do, bro.
Sis, you're not answering my question. I feel you're not. I'll say I feel you're not.
I'm answering your question. They came back. They could have come back from Canaan. They could have came back from Egypt. It doesn't matter. I don't totally know. I got to do deeper research when it comes from where they were coming back. But what I'm saying is, those two instances, 13 and 14, he was directly, because that's what I got from it, he was directly speaking to Israel on the outcome of Israel. 15 and 16 had to relate to what happened to Abraham. Nowhere in 16 have I ever related it to America. But you cannot relate that to as if that was the 400-year prophecy.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm trying to get you to see Abraham is told he's going to die. He's going to live to be good and old, and he's going to die and be buried. Now, the next verse says, in the fourth generation, they shall come back here, for the sins of the Amorites are not yet full. So let's say, since you don't know, can you concede the possibility that, okay, verse 13 and 14 is talking about America, and verse 16 is what's talking about them coming back out of Egypt. So that's possible?
That's possible.
Okay. All right, y'all. So, all right, y'all. Good night. I appreciate it.
All right, Zadok. Good deal, bro.
Can you invite Brother Michael up real quick? He got an answer for you, Zadok. He done dropped out.
Yeah.